Alrighty, so next up we're going to have Gretchen come and present for us.
Hi, I'm Gretchen Neuman, and I rank Univer, and as many of you know, I'm something of a wine nerd. So as I was doing research in American viticultural areas, I made a discovery, and that's wine made America. And let me explain how. This is the third grade version of how American history works. Columbus discovers America, Pocahontas saves John Smith, and the Pilgrims celebrate the first Thanksgiving. But the reality is much more complicated. There's a lot more players involved. There's Swedes in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Russians in California and Alaska, the Dutch in New York, New Jersey, Spain in the South and Southwest, France and the Midwest mostly, and England, well, they're on the East Coast. Now, why is England interested in wine? 3 reasons. The king uses wine taxes to enrich himself. Parliament wants to stop that. And of course, the French threaten wars constantly to interrupt the supply of delicious claret. So it's no surprise almost all of England's colonies have a viticultural mandate. Now, the French, they have wine, but they need grain, and I'm ahead of my slides, sorry. They need grain, and they want furs and other natural resources. So the people that they send over, they still want wine, and wine from home is really expensive. So they start with colonies on the East Coast, but they kept getting kicked out by the English and the Spanish and the Indians. So they go into Canada, down through the Great Lakes, into Michigan and through Illinois country, led by missionaries. And missionaries are, of course, the way Spain spreads wine throughout the U.S. Their emphasis is on glory, God, and gold, and not necessarily in that order. They also start on the East Coast in the late 1500s, but it's really in the Southwest that they do most of their work. The missionaries are allowed to be self-sufficient and make their own wine, but everybody else who wants any, well, you better go to Spain. So at this point, we now have a unified America as a country, and it's got growing territory and growing population. And they're starting to head west into this new territory. But why do they still need wine? Simple. Water equals death. Half of the pioneers traveling west that die of dysentery and cholera or other waterborne diseases. But we've got a new wave of winemaking immigrants coming into the U.S. We've got the Hungarians, the Swiss, the Germans, and the Italians. Now, the Hungarians, here we go, are mostly working as planters and miners, but it's really one Hungarian-American winemaker in particular, Augustin Harasi, who starts with a small winery in Wisconsin, of all places, and ends up west where he becomes the father of California viticulture. The Swiss Americans start making wine in Kentucky and Indiana and are providing wine to Thomas Jefferson, and then move out into the Ozarks and eventually out into California. The Italian winemakers are also helping Thomas Jefferson get his wine, and they're in New York and New Jersey, also highly in the Ozarks, work their way out west to California and Washington, and even are producing wine and olives in Alabama, of all places. But it's really the Germans who do the most to spread wine in America. Their emphasis is wine, women, and song, and that means they need the wine with them every place they go. And where do they go? Everywhere. So by 1850, there's 221,000 gallons of wine being produced commercially. The largest amount is in California, but Ohio and Pennsylvania are also pretty substantial. By 1900, this has grown exponentially. At this point, California winemaking has really taken off. They're making the lion's share, but every place else that's been producing wine is actually producing more than they ever did before. And if you look at all the statistics, you're seeing that virtually every state that exists in 1900 has winemaking that's going on a commercial level. Of course, we know what screws this up, and that's prohibition, and which is a pretty crappy excuse to not give women the vote, as it turns out. And what does it give us besides Al Capone and a bad reputation for Chicago in the Roaring '20s? Well, lots of loopholes. So people can still make 200 gallons a year. There's exceptions for medical purposes and religious institutions. It pretty much, in 13 years, sets the industry back to 50. But by the 21st century, we're back up where we were in 1900 with more states, and they're all producing wine. And that's how wine made America.